Games are complex, some more than others. The rules of a game should be understood in order for people to enjoy them, right? Does every rule and mechanic need to be understood by the player for them to enjoy the game? No. There are plenty of games with complex rules and mechanics that can still be played without understanding everything. Having a tutorial for basic actions is still desired, but leaving players to figure out the rest of the mechanics out for themselves can still work. Even games with awful tutorials are still capable of being played and enjoyed. Take League of Legends, for instance. It's great at teaching players the basics, but not telling them everything. The game has an easy-to-understand tutorial that describes your basic actions. You use your mouse to move around, you use your keyboard to activate the abilities of your character, and you buy items at the shop to make your character stronger. For a good deal of players, that's as much as they have to know. However, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of complex mechanics and interactions within the game. A lot of players aren't going to know what a meta golem or an insect or a drain tank is, or what it means to freeze a lane or counter jungle. If a player wants to know, they can, but they're not going to run into a proverbial wall if they don't. For this reason, League of Legends is a great example of a game that is simple to understand in the beginning, but is deep enough for players who want a more complex and competitive experience. You don't need to sit down and think about how to play the game, you can just play it. Now we move on to a real piece of work, Europa Universalis 4. Grand strategy game wherein the player controls a country during the early modern period. The goal of the game is to expand and develop your country in whichever way you want, whether it be through conquest, diplomacy, colonization, or trade. This game is casual gamer kryptonite, or so it seems at first. The game has an overwhelming abundance of mechanics and complex interactions, and remember when I said even games with awful tutorials are still capable of being played and enjoyed? Yeah, EU4 is the poster child for bad tutorials. The tutorial floods the player with too much information, introducing every mechanic in the game at once and not really explaining how some of them work together. Honestly, it's a mess. What's this? What is that? What are those? Aggressive expansion? Combat with... What's an Who are the Ottomans? And why are they kicking my ass so hard? All of these mechanics can matter, but none of it has to in your game, depending on how you play it. There's going to be a lot going on in this game and a lot to learn about, but you do not need to know all of it to have fun. There are a handful of nations that are very beginner-friendly, with which you mostly just go to war a bunch and stomp around and become huge. Players need not travel into spreadsheet land if they don't want to. I've played this game for almost 500 hours and I'm still learning new things each time I play. That didn't stop me from having fun when I was only 2 hours into the game. So, what this all boils down to is that it's okay if a player doesn't understand something. Although it's not ideal, having an overcomplicated tutorial or even a virtually non-existent tutorial shouldn't make or break the game. As long as the game is capable of bringing joy or satisfaction to the player, it's doing its job.